It's still red. Yeah. Are we live already?
Yeah.
But the light's still red. Oh, I see. There. Okay. Namashishtam manumapi shachiputram achasurupam rupam tasyagrajam gurupurim maturim goshtavatim radha kundam girivaramaho radhika madhavasham prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shri Gurun Tamnatosmi. So, today is a very important day for us. It is the day of departure of three very important gurus, acharyas, divine personalities in our line. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And another point about this day is that it is Gaura Dashami, this particular lunar Titi. And this Gaura Dashami, it's the 10th day of the waxing moon, and it is the day that our Gurudev chose to depart from this world also. Which we see that there's some indication, right? This is the feeling of our devotees that our Gurudev is showing something of his caliber, right, in choosing to leave on this particular day, because it is of great significance. Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Gurudev, they pointed out how Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he departed on the same Titi as Gadadhar Pandit, right? And so showing some connection there. And so, Raghunath Das Goswami, Kaviraj Goswami, in particular, they are, Madhura Rasa acharyas of the highest order. And our Gurudev, he is also in that class, and in his choosing to leave on that day, or by the divine will, he's also showing, who he is, right? What is his caliber? So, it is a, important day for us in many ways. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he is our Prayojan Acharya, Acharya who is showing us what is our highest ideal. Right? And, he is amongst the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Right? And he, Rup and Sanatan, they were like the head of that group, you could say, amongst these 6, and received direct personal instruction from Mahaprabhu. And then Raghunath Das Goswami is, perhaps a little younger and, a little junior in the group, and he particularly took shelter of Rupa Goswami. But before that, he had the very, rare opportunity to stay in Puri in Mahaprabhu's association for the last 16 years of Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And he was he didn't so much directly engage with Mahaprabhu, partly because he himself was extremely shy by nature, very, very shy. But he had a personal relationship with Mahaprabhu, but Raghunath always kind of stayed in the back, and mostly his connection with Mahaprabhu was actually through Damodar Goswami. And we hear that when Raghunath first came to stay in Puri Dham, then Mahaprabhu put him under the shelter, under the care of Swarup Damodar. And Raghunath took that so much to heart that he became known as Swarupera Raghu. It means the Raghu who belongs to Swarup Damodar. Because there are a few like Raghus. There was Raghunandan, right? Raghunandan Thakur. There's Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and one or two others as well. There's another Raghunath too. So he became known like as the Raghu who belongs to Swarup Damodar, stays with Swarup Damodar. He became known in that way, and we hear at one time Raghunath was feeling that he wanted some personal instruction from Mahaprabhu, because he when he first came to Puri, he was thinking he would have direct instruction from Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu put him under Swarup Damodar. And not that he felt dissatisfied that it was lacking, but he had some hankering for some personal instruction from Mahaprabhu. And this was indicated to Mahaprabhu perhaps through, because Raghunath, he was very shy, and we see also in his interactions with Nityananda Prabhu, he would have to be pulled forward and someone would convey the message, right? And so perhaps it was Swarup Damodar who conveyed to Mahaprabhu, oh, he wants some personal instruction from you. And then Mahaprabhu called for him and told him, I've put you under the care of Swarup Damodar, and it's not that there's something less in this. Actually, Swarup Damodar, he knows more than me. He's much more qualified to instruct you. And he said, however, if you want some personal instruction, then I can give you something. And then there are these famous, important instructions for all Vaishnavas. And I don't know if I can remember the Bengali right this ago. Gramya Vartana Kohibe, Gramya Katana Kohibe, Gramya Vartana Shunibe, Balona Kaibe, Balona Padibe. And then Amani Manada Dena, Radha Krishna Seva, Braje Radha Krishna Seva. It's saying that, and it's actually interesting, the Trinada P verse, it appears in more than one place, and it's like the verse itself is repeated twice in Chaitanya, and that's unlike, like we saw our Gurudev's always emphasizing that verse. Well, Kaviraj Goswami emphasized it too. He cites that verse twice, unlike the other Shikshashtakam verses. And then in this verse of Mahaprabhu to Raghunath, he's not saying that verse, but he's saying the principles of that verse. Amani, some of the words are the same. Amani, not desiring respect. Manadena, giving respect to others. But the first things he mentions, you've all heard these, not to speak gramya kata, right? Not to speak about worldly matters. Not to hear also. Na shunibe, not to hear. And then he says, not to dress too nicely, not to eat too nicely. And Jai Shri Guru Sundar Jai. And then he says, remaining humble and not desiring respect, giving respect to others, always serve Radha Krishna in your mind. And that last instruction is not for us. We don't try and serve in Vrindavan. We don't try and serve Radha Krishna in Vrindavan, in our manasa, in the mind. And we don't do that. And someone specifically asked Srila Sridhar Maharaj about that instruction, And Srila Sridhar said, yeah, that is for the Siddha devotees, the perfected devotees. But the other instructions are helpful for us. Live a simple life, remain humble, not to hear so many nonsense, don't speak so much nonsense. And of course, offering service according to our level, right, and what is appropriate for us. So he gave those instructions at that time. And so that was 16 years. And I mean, the whole life of Raghunath is so glorious. And so those last 16 years of Mahaprabhu's pastimes he sent with Mahaprabhu, Raghunath. And so he witnessed, he was privy to this very exclusive period in Mahaprabhu's Leela. So within those last 16 was included those last 12 years, right? Which was when Mahaprabhu withdrew from his public duty, closed up shop, so to speak, and was just, retiring within, tasting that mood of Radharani and exhibiting so many extraordinary symptoms of divine love, divine madness, vipralamba. And so Raghunath was a witness to that. And this is the thing, right? Because he had this close connection with Sri Damodar, then, we can only imagine what type of Harikatha he's hearing and what type of insight, right? Because remember, right, Mahaprabhu, Radha, Bhava, Duti, Suvolitam, Naumi, Krishna, Srupam. The devotees, they all recognize Mahaprabhu as non-different from Krishna, right? But this internal identity as the combined form of Radha Krishna, that wasn't known. Very few his devotees would know that. They recognize his divinity, but what is this internal aspect? That was known to very few. And Chaitanya Bhagavat doesn't go into that. Vrindavana Staka doesn't go into that. But Raghunath Das Goswami, he's witnessing this, hearing from Srup Damodar. Who's Srup Damodar? He's described as the second form of Mahaprabhu, right? So Raghunath, he had this exclusive darshan, you could say, in revelation, and then we hear that afterwards, Mahaprabhu left the world finally, and Sri Damodar more or less immediately left. It's not known. It was the same day or it was the next day, but right after, basically. Sri Damodar couldn't bear to be separated. So that was his whole life, Raghunath. His whole life was Mahaprabhu and Sri Damodar. They both left at the same time. And then he was utterly devastated, and and he decided he would go and give up his life, commit some type of special suicide by jumping from Govardhan Hill. And so he went to Vrindavan with that intention in mind, and then when he's in Vrindavan, then he met with Rupa and Sanatan. And having their association, he felt some new life in him, and thought, I thought Mahaprabhu had left, I thought Srup Damodar had left, but they're living in them, they're alive in them. And he began to feel again the prospect of a new life, living again, hearing from them and feeling his connection through them. And so he decided to stay in their shelter, and particularly he was drawn to Rupa Goswami. And then Kaviraj Goswami, right, who we're also honoring today as his day of disappearance. Then Kaviraj Goswami, he came a little later to Vrindavan, and he took shelter of Raghunath Das Goswami, right? And so Raghunath Das Goswami, he's had all that association with Mahaprabhu, Srup Damodar, then in Vrindavan for some years having association of Rupa and Sanatan, all this wealth, right? And then Kaviraj Goswami comes, and Kaviraj Goswami, he's a younger generation, right? He's never met Mahaprabhu in person. he had darshan in a dream of Nityananda Prabhu, right? But never had direct association. But Kaviraj, this is a very interesting point, right? Kaviraj Goswami, he's a junior person. He hasn't had that direct association. But by connecting with the right person, he got everything, right? Srila Sridhar Maharaj describes Kaviraj Goswami as a disciple of Raghunath. I don't know if there was a formal like Diksha initiation, probably not. But that was their relationship, like guru-disciple. And so Kaviraj Goswami, he had like full access with Raghunath Das Goswami, and then that's how he comes to write this, right? Chaitanya Charitamrita, greatest theological literature that's ever seen the light of day. The authoritative text on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he never even met Mahaprabhu, right? But he has more insight into him than others, more revelation than others who had direct association. Why? Because he connected with the right person, the right channel, right? So then he had full access. So by the grace of Raghunath Das Goswami, and then Kaviraj Goswami, he was especially requested by the Vaishnavas of Vrindavan, including this one particular Haridas Pandit. He was the head pujari of was it the Madan Mohan temple, I believe, in Vrindavan. And he was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit. And so he in particular requested, you please, they could recognize, they could understand he had some special insight. And they already had Chaitanya Bhagavat, and there were other texts written also. But they could see, this Kaviraj, he has something more to give. And so they requested him, you please. And we hear, and it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Agya Mala Agya, there's this one phrase, the instructing garland, because he made this prayer, because he was given this request, made this request, and he still felt some hesitation within him, and so he prayed to this, I believe it was Sanatana Goswami's Madan Mohan deity. It's described in the early chapters of Charitamrita. And then when he made that, just at the moment when he was making that prayer, then the deity's garland fell, like indicating, yes, we are giving our grace, And the pujari could recognize something had happened, and he brought that garland to Kaviraj Goswami, like that. And so then we have Chaitanya Charitamrita because of that. So it's very wonderful to contemplate on the nature of like these relationships that all these great Vaishnavas had with one another. And so going back to Raghunath Das Goswami, we kind of just mentioned the later part of his life, but what adds to the whole thing is that he was born, as you all know, he was born in a very wealthy family. So that kind of just highlights the nature of his attachment, right? He was completely detached, completely indifferent from any type of material wealth, enjoyment. And he was the only son of a very wealthy family, right? Like billionaires by today's standards. Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar, his father and uncle, very wealthy people. And we hear in earlier sections of Chaitanya Charitamrita, different places, like how he struggled, right, to get away from that, and kept trying to run away, and they bring him back, and there's one very significant instruction that Mahaprabhu gives him at one point, because he's tried several times by now to run away, and his parents bring him back, and then at one point he gets permission to go and visit Mahaprabhu, and he's nearby. And he appeared in Bengal. I forget the name of his birth town. Acharya Maharaj would go there sometimes, but not so few hours from Navadvip, in that area, that region, between Calcutta and Navadvip, I think, somewhere off. But then at one time, when Mahaprabhu, perhaps that was in Shantipur, he came that time. And Mahaprabhu told him to, relax. It's a very nice, kind of like humorous verse. Stira hoya gore jao nahao batula krame krame, saying that calm down, go home, don't be a madman. And he says, gradually we'll cross over the ocean of material existence. Don't rush ahead too much, And it's a very it's very helpful instruction for all devotees. To cultivate it within your heart. You don't necessarily have to change your whole life and run away from your worldly life, but let it develop as something deep in your heart, right? And then Mahaprabhu later gave a similar instruction to Rupa and Sanatan also. And in both cases, they later had the opportunity to leave everything behind. But it's interesting, in both cases, Mahaprabhu told them not to immediately do that, but in the right time, but, be sensible, be sober, and in the right time you'll get the opportunity. And then in both cases they were able to eventually. So, but then another important point here is how Raghunath eventually was able to escape his family life by the grace of Nityananda Prabhu, right? That's an important point in this whole Leela. And remember, it's all Leela, it's part of the Lord's play, right? He's relishing these exchanges with the devotees. But at the same time, there's some instruction in many of these points. And so this is one theme that you see coming up again and again in Mahaprabhu's Leela, the importance of having the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. That it cannot be overlooked, right? It cannot be, there's no sidestepping Nityananda Prabhu. There's no Mahaprabhu without Nityananda Prabhu. And so we see, then there's that event, Panihati festival. And it's just outside of Calcutta. And Nityananda was nearby, and Raghunath hears about this, and he arranges for a big festival. And he's the son of a wealthy man, wealthy family, and so he uses his money, to serve Nityananda and his associates. And that's a very wonderful occasion. He mentions how he went and bought so many things from the local shopkeepers, various sweets and milk products, and they use this chira, this flattened pre-cooked rice, and yogurt, all kinds of things, and fruits. And we hear that he bought out all these local shopkeepers, and then afterwards those same shopkeepers, they came to join the festival, and they had all the prasad. I like to think of that as a good example of the nature of mercy, right? They Raghunath, he bought all of it, and then he's giving it back to them for free as prasadam. And Nityananda is very, very pleased with Raghunath's mood of service, and he blesses him, and then it is after that Raghunath is able to leave his family life. We hear about the night of escape, right? He's a little tricky, You see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's some license given for being a little tricky sometimes. Right? Sanatana Goswami has to bribe his jailer, right, to be able to escape from prison and come to the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. So having some street smarts is necessary sometimes. And so Raghunath, he was a little tricky, right? Because we hear, and it's the same in Western countries, in these big wealthy households. There are different layers to the the structure of the household. So there's like the inner layer, the outer layers where the servants stay, and there were like 3 layers in Raghunath's home, and at a certain point he started just sleeping in the outer layer where the servants would sleep, and also we have to mention one comment that Gurudev really liked. That on one of the earlier occasions when Raghunath was running away and then they're bringing him back, and then his mother at a certain point said something like, "Why don't we just tie him up with rope?" And his father. And the one interesting thing about Raghunath's family is that they were kind of like we meet them today still, like good Hindu family. They love the devotees. They give donations to the devotees, but they don't want their kids to become devotees. They kind of like fit that prototype, because they were big supporters. Like they would put on festivals. We hear earlier this big event where they had big Vaishnava festival where they had Haridas Thakur as the guest of honor and the guest speaker, and they used to give support to Advaita Acharya and all the Brahmins of Nadia district. They would give support. So, they're described, as I recall, as Vaishnava Prai, means almost Vaishnava, like not quite Vaishnava, almost Vaishnava. But they didn't want their son to become a Hare Krishna. And so also, like Raghunath, he grew up, right? Like amongst all these Vaishnavas. Like he met with Haridas and Advaita Acharya and others when he was younger, like as a boy, So, but anyway, so then this one occasion, Raghunath's mother, she made this comment, we should just tie him up. And his father, he said, because, they had these mixed feelings. Like, they love the devotees, right? They respect them, they cherish them, but they don't want their son to become one. So it's like mixed feelings, right? So then his father said in response, he already has as much wealth as Lord Indra. He has a wife as beautiful as a Gandharva, an Apsara, like a heavenly, maiden. And these are the greatest ropes that this world has to offer. Like, what greater ropes are there than these? What's mere rope going to do, right? And then he also says something like, for someone who's been touched by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, right? These things mean nothing, something like that. And then there's also this kind of relationship that Mahaprabhu has with them too, and there's some family connection too on Mahaprabhu's side. Like maybe Mahaprabhu's uncle had been friends with one of them. So there's some connection like that. And then there's a very funny section too, when really, like, Kaviraj Goswami is very sharp. He has so much humor in here. And then later when Raghunath finally makes it to Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, then Mahaprabhu, he goes into this whole thing, like, dissing his family, like, saying, like, you've been saved from the stool ditch of material enjoyment that your family are living in, like, really heavy. But he says there, I can talk like this because I'm like family, with your parents. Like, he says something like, I can talk about them like this. Because that's kind of like a thing, right? You're allowed to like diss your own culture, your own nationality, your own family. You can't do it to others, but it's acceptable, right? So and so then that after receiving the mercy of Mahaprabhu, then he starts. He's being strategic, Raghunath. He's sleeping on the outer layer of the household, and then very early one morning, their family guru, Yadunandan Acharya, I think, disciple of Gadadhar Pandit, he comes by early in, I don't know, like 3 in the morning or something like that, maximum 4 in the morning, saying that his pujari had disappeared, or there was some problem with the pujari, and Raghunath, he's like, he's the wealthy son of this. They're practically royalty, they're Kayasta caste, but they're practically royalty, they're considered like that, very powerful. So he's thinking, if this Raghunath comes to help me, we can come up with some solution, bring this person back or something. So he asks Raghunath, can you help? And Raghunath says, yeah, sure. And so, and Raghunath literally has these guards, 12 guards or something. His parents have appointed to watch over him. And some servants too. But then what they see, he's going out with the family guru, then okay, then we won't interfere. So they let him go like that. And Raghunath's like, I've got my chance. So Raghunath says, don't worry, Guruji, you can go home and I'll take care of this. And so I think he does actually take care of it first. And then he makes a run for it. And he's very clever. Again, you see this trickiness. And first he runs for a few days. He wants to get to Puri, right? To join Mahaprabhu. But first he runs for a few days in the opposite direction. Because he knows as soon as the sun rises and his parents see he's gone, they're going to be after him. So he runs for a few days in the opposite. And he doesn't even go on the main path. He goes on these little, off the beaten track, little side paths. And for a few days, 3 days, I think, he does in the opposite direction. And then he turns around. And again, staying on these little side paths, going through obscure areas, and then finally he makes, and eating very little, I think it mentions he only ate on 3 days. It took him 12 days, as I recall, and he only ate on a few of those days, some little food here and there. And then finally he reaches the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, and then Mahaprabhu receives him, of course, with so much affection and puts him in the care of Sri Damodar. And another very special thing is Mahaprabhu, and perhaps I don't remember if it was when he first arrived, maybe later, because he was pretty dirty. It's transcendental dirt, because that's mentioned. Mahaprabhu tells him to go clean up. But Mahaprabhu personally gives him this Govardhan Shila that someone had given, and it had been like 2 or 3 years. Mahaprabhu had been caring for this Govardhan Shila personally, holding it to his heart, holding it to his eyes, crying tears of ecstasy. And that Shila is still being worshipped today in Vrindavan, Gokulananda temple, I think.
It has a fingerprint.
I think we didn't go this time, but before I think we couldn't go for some reason. Or maybe I didn't go, but you all went. But you went there this time.
Is that the temple where there is Narottam Das?
Yeah, that temple. Yeah, Narottam Thakur's Pushpa Samadhi is there. And also maybe a few others, yeah. Yeah, very nice, small temple. Yeah, I think so. And so Mahaprabhu personally gave that Shila to Raghunath Das Goswami, and he instructed him, and Gurudev points this out, that Mahaprabhu instructed him on the vision he is to have, that he says because Govardhan actually has 2 identities. He has the identity as a devotee of the Lord, and then he also is considered non-different from the Lord himself. But Gurudev pointed out, when it comes to our approach, we're approaching him as the Lord. And then he cites this, this discussion. Mahaprabhu gave that instruction to Raghunath, that you worship him as Krishna himself. And then also these gunjamala, right? These special berries that you actually have here, don't you? Yeah. Generally, we don't worship in the line of Saraswati Thakur, but this is kind of a special exception. Srila Sridhar Maharaj gave, right?
Well, it came
Yeah.
with this Giridhara.
Yeah. Srila Sridhar Maharaj gave that personally to Devi Shish Prabhu. And so that Gunja Mala, these special berries, and they represent Radharani. So he told them like to worship like that and offer Ganga Jal and Tulasi, Patra, right? Every day, very simple worship. So, Raghunath Das Goswami. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he's also known for his extreme vairagya, his extreme mood of renunciation, like more than anyone. I mean, many of the devotees of Mahaprabhu, they displayed extreme renunciation, but Raghunath like topped everyone. Like he to the point where like the other Goswamis were concerned about him. There was this one incident later when he was living in Vrindavan and he was sitting by the banks of the Jamuna, perhaps absorbed in writing or some chanting or something, and there was a tiger that came up next to him and was like drinking from the Jamuna next to him. And there's a painting of it, you see, and you remember, and Raghunath is completely aloof, right? And Sanatan happened to walk by, and he's a little alarmed. We have to build some little bhajan kutir for you, because he's just sleeping under the tree or some cave or something. So they had something built for him. And of course, there's that famous incident when in Puri, right? When he's eating this old, like spoiled rice, because in the beginning there was a whole like sequence of events, right? Like in the beginning, his parents, they finally accepted, okay, he's going to stay in Puri with Mahaprabhu, but they thought, well, at least we'll make it a little comfortable for him. So they sent him a personal cook and some servants, and they were sending money every month, and in the beginning, Raghunath, he was kind of like just accepting it, and what he would do is with that money and with the cook, every month he would put on a big festival for Mahaprabhu and the devotees, but then at a certain point he felt, actually for a renunciate like myself, this isn't really appropriate. This isn't appropriate for me, in my role and my service, and so then he stopped doing that, and he declined any support at all from his parents, and then he started like standing as a beggar. There were different phases that he went through, and for a while he was standing as a beggar, waiting for people walking, like near the temple, the main Jagannath temple, waiting for people coming, giving some prasadam or some money or something, and then at a certain point he thought, I'm becoming like a prostitute. He thought, like, I'm thinking, oh, this person coming, maybe they'll give, maybe they won't give, and my mind is becoming so entangled like this, and so then he stopped that, and then for a little while he was going to this special booth for poor people, like giving out leftover prasadam, not old, but leftover prasadam from the Jagannath temples. He was taking that for a while, and then he thought, oh, but I'm taking what perhaps others need more than me, so I shouldn't take this anymore. And then finally, in the last phase, he's taking that old rice, right? That is like old, like spoiled rice, a few days old. The cows wouldn't eat it, we hear, and they threw the rice out. But Gurudev, Gurudev would sometimes add his own little insights, and Gurudev also said maybe it wasn't that the rice was so bad that the cows wouldn't eat it, but the cows were so full because they're so satisfied with so much other prasad. He said maybe like that. And but anyway, the rice is a little spoiled, and we hear he's washing it. the rice, Raghunath, and then taking it with a little salt. And one time Mahaprabhu came upon him when he was eating this, and Mahaprabhu, told him, "Oh, Raghunath, you're saving the best prasadam for yourself. Why aren't you offering this to me?" And Mahaprabhu took some of that from him and was eating it himself. And then Sri Damodar came and had to stop Mahaprabhu. "Oh, this is not for you, my lord. Don't do this." So very, very renounced nature, extreme. And then later in Vrindavan, at a certain point, I think he just stopped eating altogether. He went through different phases. There's one composition that was written by one Vaishnava. It might even be in our Bengali songbook, but it's describing, Raghunath's vairagya, his renunciation, and how he went in Vrindavan. He went through these different phases as well, minimizing his eating, and finally he's just living on, divine love. So, but he's known for that, it's extreme renunciation. Although he came from so much wealth. So, something about the glories of Raghunath Das Goswami. And then lastly, we should mention about Raghunath is his, as we mentioned in the beginning, he's known as our Prayojanacharya, who showed us what is our highest ideal. And in regards to that, we can mention his extreme affinity for Radharani, right? He is also known for that. Extreme attachment, extreme devotion for Srimati Radharani. He really clarified that point, that the real goal of our line is not Krishna Seva actually, but Radha Dasya, right? The service in the finest sense, right? What we keep on a top shelf at present, because we're not quite ready for that yet. But that is the ultimate aspiration of the members of this line. And so in some of his prayers he expresses the most extreme mood of devotion for Srimati Radharani. And our line really, we are known more widely as Rupa Nugas, right? Followers of Rupa. But in a more specific sense, we are known as the line of Rupa and Raghunath. That was something Srila Saraswati Thakur used to mention, and Gurudev, Srila Sridhar Maharaj also discussed that. Rupa, in fact, in our in the Mat Shloka, right, that Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote, and he began Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat, Srimad Rupa, what is it? Srimad Rupa, Rupa Nuga, Guru Gauranga Radha Jitasha. He mentions, that we're serving the line of Rupa, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And our Gurudev, he wrote this expanded Bengali translation of that verse. And Gurudev added in his translation the line of Rupa and Raghunath. The verse actually says Rupa, but Gurudev added that, that's implying Raghunath also. Srila Sridhar Maharaj actually, he goes, in one place, he goes so far as to say that Raghunath Das Goswami, Rupa Goswami is known as the head of our line, but Raghunath Das Goswami, in his prayers, he's actually showing more clearly than Rupa what is the ultimate end of our line, right? And on this point, this focus on the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. So he's very important for us. Very, very important for us. We hear that one occasion where one foolish, arrogant Brahmin in Vrindavan, he made that remark. Because Raghunath, in one of his prayers, he mentions, he's asking for the blessings of so many great beings, and he mentions the blessings of the Vaishnavas, the blessings of the residents of Vrindavan. He mentions the blessings of the Brahmins, and then there was this foolish Brahmin who made this comment, "Oh, we can bless Raghunath Das Goswami." right? He was a Brahmin living in Vrindavan. He was saying, we are Brahmins and we're also Brajabasis living in Vrindavan. We can bless Raghunath. Really stupid man. And Saraswati Thakur happened to be in Vrindavan at that time, and he wasn't there, but it was told to him. It was like some public meeting. This man had said that, and so it was conveyed to Saraswati Thakur. He was so upset, he started to fast. He stopped all eating. He was so upset, like Raghunath Das Goswami, he's our Prayojan Acharya. Right? He's so important to us, and this foolish, idiot man, he'll speak like this. It's such arrogance. He can bless him. Like, who does he think he is? And he was so upset, he stopped eating. And he said, until there's some suitable, there was one word like pratikar, until there's some suitable, correction, apology, some rectification, I won't touch any food, So he was fasting a few days, and then finally, there was someone who went to speak with that man and explained the foolishness of his words, and he came and apologized. And so then Saraswati Thakur, and Saraswati Thakur, he started fasting, and then his whole group started fasting too. So, who is Raghunath Das Goswami? It's very important for us. And we can perhaps mention just one of his prayers. I know everyone has service to do. We can just mention one of his prayers, this Ashabare Amrita Sindhu Mayai Katanjit Kalomati Gati Mai forgotten it. Ashabare Amrita Sindhu Mayai Katanjit Kaloi Sampratamhi Tvam Chet Kripam Mai Vidasasi Naiva Kimme Praner Rajena Cha Vadaruva Karinapi, where he's saying that, I've been sustained. It's this extreme, and it's a direct prayer, Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned, and it's a direct and bold prayer also to Srimati Radharani. And first, it's a prayer, it's like heart-rending prayer for her mercy. And he's saying that I'm waiting so patiently to receive a drop of your mercy. And he says, I've been maintaining my life. He's writing this at the end of his life, more or less, in this world. And he says, my whole life has been spent in the aspiration that I will receive your mercy. And he compares that aspiration to an ocean of nectar. Right, Amrita Sindhu, this asha, this hope, this is like an ocean of nectar. Just the hope, just the aspiration, right? That is this nectarian, right, divine substance. And he says, I've been carrying on my days, living on this hope that I'll receive your mercy. And it's been so long, but I don't know how much longer I can continue, like how much more I can hold out. Like, please give me your mercy. And then finally he says, and if I don't receive your mercy, of what use is anything to me? And he says, what use is my own life? Then he takes it further, what use is Vrindavan? Then he takes it even further, what use is Krishna to me? Very bold prayer. Shrimati Radharani. I have no need for Krishna without you. Who is Krishna? And even more than that, he refers to Krishna as a demon killer, right? Who's Krishna but a demon, Bakari Napi, the killer of the Baka demon. You are the one who makes Krishna beautiful and charming. So I have no use for that Krishna without you. You are everything to me. So this is this heart-rending prayer. And he spent his last days, living by Radha Kund, and his bhajan kutir is there now. In Govardhan by Radha Kund.
The one with the dome at that inside.
Maybe we don't go inside it, but
no, there is I can't remember.
I can't remember.
You always go inside. There is like a dome on the ground like that. coming from the inside.
Maybe it's all a little hazy in my head too. Yeah, I remember clearly, but it's by Radha Kund. But there were a few there, a few like kind of samadhi places there. I don't have it clear in my mind. So he spent his last days there, right? By Radha Kund in Govardhan. And there was also, we hear that he expressed this extreme mood of devotion for Radharani. There was this one song he used to sing. We hear like crawling on his hands and knees, like crying, in prayer to Radharani. Crying in separation for Srimati Radharani. So it's very purifying for us to remember these divine personalities, their example, and we see by their example, right? They neglected everything of this world, for the sake of culturing this high ideal. And we pray for their mercy this day. That we may remain, we may continue on this path. And we all stop there. Jai Shri Raghunath Das Goswami Ki Jai, Shri Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai, Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami Ki Jai. Does someone want to sing?
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
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 Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana.
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana.
Giri Gopinath Madana Mohana.
Giri Hari Gopinath Madana Mohana.
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra.
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra.
Radharada Srivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda.
Radharada Srivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha.
Jaya Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha.
Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha.
Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha.
Ichai Gosai Gauri Charana Vandana.
Echai Gosai Kodi Charana Vandana.
Yahavate Vignana Sabhista Purana.
Yahavate Vignana Samista Purana.
Ichai Gosai Amritanya Dasa.
Echai Gosai Jamuvitara Dasa.
Dasavada Paralana Mura Panchagrasa.
Tansabada Pada Dinu Mura Panchagrasa.
Viracharane Seve Bhakta Sanidasa.
Tadira Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivasa.
Janame More Abhilasa.
Janame More Abhilasha.
Jai Gosai Abhi Prajakulavasa.
Echai Gosai Chabe Braje Koiravasa.
Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Kodila Prakasa.
Ishi Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Kodila Prakasha.
Anande Guru Hari Vaja Vrindavana.
Anande Bolo Hari Vaja Vrindavana.
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Macharya Mana.
Pad Padma Kuniyasha
Harinam Sankirtana Kore Narottama Dasa
Harinam Sankirtana Kore Narottama Dasa
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Sakura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Giridhari Ju ki Jai Jai Shri Raghunath Das Goswami ki Jai Shri Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki Jai Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami ki Jai Tariya Tira Bhav Mahamahotsava Titi ki Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai Saprasad Shima Mahaprabhu ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai Jai Shri Bhakti Nirmala Charja Maharaj ki Jai Shri Bhakti Pavan Janarda Maharaj ki Jai Acharya Vrinda ki Jai Seva Vrinda ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai Jai Gaur Premanande